to comment before we start? No? Okay. So, first item on the agenda is review of sponsorship proposals. And so,
I have, based on discussion last week and doing with Jeff and Kathy and Brandy and Scott, I have some of the information and try to break it into categories. But if you want, before we start, there were some questions we were supposed to try to get some answers to from last meeting. So if you want me to give my information. One was Upper Dublin.
Excuse me, can you turn your microphone on, please?
Is this better?
It's much better.
would you want to start with that, or should we have that when we get to advertising?
It doesn't, I just don't want to forget that because I did my job. Looks like Joe did his. There's some we don't have answers to, but just make sure you don't forget that when we get down there, because that was part of it.
Okay.
I have, looking at sponsorship, let me pass these down here. I'm working with Kathy Johnson. The concern was trying to come up with a, give it to you, Jeff, in case somebody else, we're missing some people. I thought Bill and Barry would be here, so just hold on to them. Looking at prices for sponsorship opportunities that are not going to mess up any bidding process, but give some sort of figure, because we can't wait for some of these things to go out. So looking at these, Jeff and I came up with some dollar amounts, and I'll go through them. First of all, scoreboard, that's probably what they cost for those. And so the recommended donation is $40,000, and then when they do that, we'll pay for the signage. The concession stand, the weight room, the team room 1 and team room 2 are all about the same size. And in the schematics that Jeff was explaining, the sponsorship for them should be all about the same amount, which is $250,000 each. Let me explain it. We're going to try to, and recommend to the board, that you do this like most places do. They pay for it over 10 years, because no one writes a check for that big amount. Even Coke, when they were doing their scoreboards, were doing like 10% a year. So if it's $40,000 for a scoreboard, they would do $4,000, $4,000, and they just write a contract with the school district.
Unless they're willing to.
If they want to, that's fine too, but some of these are a big chunk. Someone writing a $250,000 check is going to be pretty steep. I mean, but I just say that we ought to make sure we give them an option, because I don't want to just have the money scare people away.
Wait, who did you say normally does the 10 years? Other schools?
No, Coke and Pepsi, when they were doing scoreboards, they were doing
Okay.
10-year contracts, because even they weren't giving the money all up front.
But that was self-serving for them, because they wanted to make sure that the contract stayed active, and so
Absolutely.
that was the price of poker, you know.
Absolutely.
As long as you keep the product in the
That's
schools,
correct.
we'll keep paying. So that doesn't necessarily mean that that was necessary for everybody.
No, and we're just saying that we're recommending that be an option for people, because I don't want to scare people, say, well, I don't have 40,000, because we have other things to show you as far as memorial things as well. But if somebody wants that, I mean, say for instance, it's a 10-year deal on the weight room, and it's $250,000. In the first, they do the first year for $25,000. We'll spend a couple thousand for a sign there, and if it doesn't go beyond the first year, we're still $22,000 ahead. But they lose the signage after that goes away. So it's not going to hurt us, but we need to just flesh out some of the ideas to make sure that there are options for people to do that.
Yeah, I know universities do 5 years, when they ask alumni for gifts, they'll say if you make a commitment, you can pay it over 5 years.
That's fine too. I'm just
And maybe because reunions are every 5 years, so.
that could be, but these are the prices. We can talk about how it works. We're just recommending have some flexibility. Main ticket booth, if you remember in the diagrams that were passed out last week, is going to have some sort of facade on it, and it was just art. It says like Hellman Track and Field. I don't know what it's going to look like at the very end, but that's going to be more ornate than the other ticket booths. That's why we're recommending $50,000 for sponsor that would have your name or your company or whatever on there. East entrance booth and the west entrance are the same size, so the dollar amount's the same. Home side press box, which includes the signage, we're recommending $75,000. Now you're going to get the press box that comes with the stadium already, but that's at least money to offset what the board has already committed for that. So some of these things are up there, like as we go down. Now we're looking at bleachers, to sponsor a bleacher. Between the two 40-yard markers, it's $4,500 a bleacher. Between the 30s and the 40s on both sides of the home field, it's $4,000. And in category 3, all other home side bleachers are $3,500. We figured that they're not going to even look at doing anything for the visitor bleachers till those are done. And if somebody wants to say, we hate Pennridge, we're gonna spend the money and sponsor the visitor bleachers, you know, then they should teach us a lesson and send us a check, and we'll just
So we would do
thank them
a
very
row in
much.
one section, if it's section, C, one row, $4,500.
And on each side, we'll just put one of those
A sticker.
rivets or whatever they are for, you know, sponsored by the class of 2004. Because they, you know, we're gonna encourage when we get to the point of how do we reach out, here's something that class can do when they're looking to raise money for their school, and it will be there forever. If they want to do an individual seat, you know, they end up being $225, that's an option, and we looked at the bleacher row seats on the other side. And the last on this list was weight room equipment, and basically they would pay based on what the cost is. So that's one category for sponsorship opportunities. Do you want me to go through all the ones I have, or let's
I
start
have
with that?
a couple of questions. How many seats are in a bleacher row? Or is it just, or they're not distinguished?
They are pretty even. What did we calculate?
28 for the normal size. It looks like the ones in the 40 looks like they're a little bit longer, but that's why they cost a little bit more. But you can get 28 to 30 on there. I don't know where we are with the numbering of those seats there, but we just divided by, 30 inches and going across there and doing some math for it. Jeff,
I think it was roughly about 20 seats.
About
20 seats
For
per
the smaller one? For the-
per row for the larger area.
Okay,
So 20 times 250, you get
225.
5K, so we're in that neighborhood.
yeah.
225, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you buy the whole row, there's it's easier for us, and people may want to do the whole
And
row.
Bruce and I went up and looked and said, if you're sitting between the 40s, well, that's a pretty good seat, anywhere between the
Yes, sir.
40s. But if you're from 30 to 20 now, well, that seat's not worth as much as this. So that's why we came up with the different
I love it.
categories, which
Yeah.
makes more sense.
So those are really the facilities that you have up there, something that's hard that you can put a tag on or hang a sign from that we have up there so far. This is based on what, you may end up approving if you do the whole project. So we're trying to make sure we had opportunities. And someone asked me the dollar amount. I think this, if all these things were come to fruition, first of all, just the concession stand with the weight room and the team room, that's $1 million alone.
Right.
And the other bleachers, you're probably talking near the mid-twos, 2 point something. So if our goal is gonna be, you'll have to set, if our goal is 2, there's a lot of opportunities, and I haven't even gotten to memorials yet.
Yeah. Yeah, so how many bleacher rows are there?
22 on the home side.
Okay. All right, more like where we would sell them, and then how about it on the visitor side? Is it orange?
11. Yes. Or 3,500 seats on the home side and 1,500 on the visitor.
It's 11 times 5 sections on the visitor side, is that right?
Yes.
Because we're weighting them all the same,
I believe that's
for the
5
same
sections.
price.
Okay, so you're saying there's 11 rows on the visitor side, and then there's 5 sections, so we can sell 55 rows of seats?
Yes.
Right.
Okay,
And there's 22, and there's,
5 sections
5
also?
sections.
yeah, on the home side.
Right.
Okay, and, the rows are gonna be, numbered?
No, they're not. We didn't get any numbering or lettering. Now, I talked to the bleacher company themselves, and he said usually you could buy section A, B, C, and D, which would just be aluminum plaque off the front, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. Usually they don't do seats.
Yeah, no, I
So
don't
he's
think it
gonna
have to be seats, but rows.
He's gonna look into that for us. He's gonna give me a price.
Okay,
Under his breath, he said, maybe I can give you that for free. Okay?
That'd be a nice gesture.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
I figure it's better to ask while they're still constructing.
Yeah, well, we
than-
still haven't paid him yet. So, if not, we can contact the local people to do the same thing.
Because I think, I mentioned at the last meeting, I think if we want to use the stadium for an evacuation spot, it would be good to have,
Section A, Road 22.
right, and also if we're selling the rows, at least to say to people, oh, you're section A, row 5, that's where you
Yeah.
can find your name, so people, they don't have to scout through the
I
whole.
agree.
That's
I think they
Now,
should-
one thing they talked about is not to rivet them on the little plate class of 2014, the rivet it on, he says they eventually start to wear and rub and people start tearing their pants and making holes. So they do more of a silk screening vinyl that you put on, and he says it stays really forever. To get it off, you need heat to apply, so that's what he was suggesting, that's what the information he was gonna send me.
Oh, okay.
Could you etch them into the side?
Etch them, you could. How's your art hand? Sure, you could,
Right?
and it's then permanent,
That's not gonna change.
but
Do we have any costs associated with the plaques or the labels or anything? Or we're still gathering
we're
that?
still gathering that.
We'll do that. If the price is, once you come up with a recommended donation, because remember, Joe is gonna put together a brochure that we're gonna have to figure out what the signage costs, and we have people that do signs, we can find out, what that's gonna
Right, so
be.
for the budget, for the,
Talking about the plaques and the pavers, everybody I talked to said, well, I need a design before I can really give you a price. I mean, pavers are $3, $4, $5, so
That's on our memorial.
that cost is very inexpensive.
okay.
But they really don't want to give you a price on engraving until they have something to look at.
Okay.
So sometime I'll have to kind of design, we talked about a key.
That may be based on how much you're putting on
Sure.
a paver, what you're putting on there, they usually limit
Right.
how much.
Yeah, you get 24 or 40
We
characters.
were talking P on everyone.
But it's at a lower price, so someone who's not gonna, spend $250,000, or
Or
do
even
the
200.
memorial section, which gets like platinum level at 10,000, like a lot of, you'll see a lot of hospitals, colleges, those sort of fundraisers like that. It's something that anybody can do for their family, so we're trying to make sure that, we don't have anybody have an excuse saying we can't help out, but here's something you can do, all the way down to something very small. So our goal is to have it reachable and affordable for anybody who wants to contribute.
Okay, so, now you have more information about sponsors or the?
This
other
is
ones?
sponsored, yeah, the next
Okay.
section is memorials, and I have advertising, so I had 3 separate ones, so leave it on this way.
Okay, yeah, so, does anybody here have questions about sponsorship opportunities?
Are you okay with the price? I think Kathy said it's fine,
Yeah,
and
it's fine.
Jeff said it's fine, because these have to be approved by the board. So when we put together our packet in September, when we were looking for having the board approve, I want the prices approved, so we can put together, the brochure that's gonna have all these things, and then start, finding out people who might be willing to, look at this. So this is, if you're good
Were
with
these
this,
comparable with other, did you have any reference from other schools or anything like that?
we looked at the cost of our own project, because that's how we're gonna do it. We tried to break it down by, a unit being a team room, and there's 2 of them, a unit being the concession room. I don't think the concession room really is gonna attract a lot of takers, but the team rooms and the weight room, people will look to put their names on that.
What about a
Hopefully the
restaurant or
concession stand.
something?
Yeah.
I mean, you could have a restaurant that would say, hey, I want to be a part of that, especially somebody that has some affiliation with the school.
Hers or
Snyder's
Snyder's?
house.
Hers is a
Then why should
local,
you
right?
have one?
Snyder's, they're both
I don't know.
Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
We
Yeah.
That's why we put a price, we originally said, well, no one's gonna do it, and they said, well, they're all about the same size, so let's put them all out there. If we get somebody, absolutely.
Well, and with that, if it's restaurants, you could have a number of them going together,
Yeah, so
That
that's,
250,000
That's correct.
doesn't have to just come from one restaurant, if that was the case.
That's correct.
What about bidding out the catering of it? Now, I know the kids get if they are selling if they're actually doing it, but what if we were to put a contract out from a restaurant or something, that the junior class would get the benefits of whatever that bid is, and it's a guaranteed, that would be guaranteed money at that point. If they say, a restaurant would say, for the purpose of, or for the privilege of selling whatever food here, we'll bid, almost like a TV contract, 25,000 or 50,000, or, it may not work, I don't know, it's a thought.
I would say we explore everything.
Yeah, maybe like a pizza, if they bring, I don't know if they bring pizza in, a lot of
They do
times.
bring pizza,
Yeah, so
sure.
if you bring pizza in, and you can say, we'll go with you, and then you have a sign, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they pay for a privilege of having their concession in the concession
Well,
stand.
and then they could get the they could get their
Yeah,
name
that's what I mean,
up also,
right.
which they don't have now, right now it's just pizza.
And it would be annual bidding, it's not like you put a sign up there once and done, you know, this would be something that you could say, if you have the pizza concession for this year, then your name will be on the stadium and, I mean, on the booth, and people would know that you're a supporter of Pennridge, and to whatever value that might add to their business, that they have some visibility as a Pennridge booster.
So Joe, would you look at, if they were gonna give 25,000, the cost that the class would lose by not bringing in their own food, having an outside vendor, part of that 25,000 would go back to the class of,
I would say all of the
2000.
25,000.
All of the
Well, I mean, this is just thinking out loud.
well, part of it could go back to the class, that the money they're losing, and then part could be.
But I mean, that would take away all that concern about us having to staff it and all that. If somebody's willing to staff it and the benefits, for the privilege of having that concession there, they pay for that, whatever they're willing to pay for that
Yeah, but
privilege.
with the junior class, like it's the exec council, and part of their requirement for being in that group is doing work within the group, and that is included. So by saying, bring in a restaurant, have their employees do the work,
Okay,
and just,
there's
you
a
know.
thousand ways we could do
Yeah,
this, I just
I think,
just
you
a
know, you
thought.
gotta look at it that way
Sure.
too, that you're taking from those students.
Right, I was just thinking that you could, you know, with the pizza say we're gonna all season, or all for this whole year, whenever anybody sells anything, we're gonna buy pizza from this one place.
That's right.
And then, but not do all the food, because they bring in candy and
Hot
all
Also
dogs.
maybe for advertising opportunity.
right, and yeah, maybe that's just an advertising, but yeah, that's something to look at. How about naming having your name on
The whole
the
enchilada.
stadium? Yeah, do we have a price for that?
I would only take one check.
I wouldn't turn anybody down, the
2
thing
million.
is, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, if someone wants to write a check for $2.5 million or $3 million bucks, I mean, you don't turn it down, I just don't know. People do that for colleges, they do it for high schools, they do it for a public
But you don't
library.
know if you don't ask.
Yeah, they do.
Right, so can we add that as a sponsorship, naming the stadium, and it could still be
You know,
Hellfish Field?
It doesn't matter, we'll just add them all up there and just come up with some price for our next meeting then.
And then
Let's figure out a price for that.
For what it's worth, Perkiomen Valley sold their stadium naming rights for $12,500 a year for 3 years.
Oh, that's not much
I don't
money
think
at
that's
all.
very much money, yeah.
For the whole stadium?
For the whole
I
stadium?
don't like that idea.
Wow, that's not nice.
That may be what the market is.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, well, yeah.
Okay, we'll explore it.
Sorry.
Right now,
Down road.
it's not gonna be $12,000 a year, I'm gonna look at the cost of the, I mean, you have, right now, for that whole concession stand, weight room, team room thing, it's $1 million, it's 4 times $250,000. And you're talking about bleachers on top of that, so it's, you know, it's easily $2.5 million. And that's, you know, not covering the whole cost, but for a $2.5 million check, we'll call it the Mr. David Thompson Stadium.
I left my checkbook at home, so. I said I'd donate the outhouse, you know, I feel really when I donate something.
Yeah, that's $64 a month.
First donation.
That's not a month, I think.
I don't have that listed, but we'll take her check for $10,000, that's the same as a ticket booth. Okay,
I
so
think-
we'll look at that.
Yeah, well, and the other thing to look at is if we did have that, would we not sell the other things, or would you still sell the other things?
Yes.
Sure, that's just the name of the.
Well, then that's different. If you're looking at the name just for the stadium and still looking for these other ones, then that's a different number.
Okay, well, so we'll have to talk about that at the,
Okay, well, let's work on a number and do some thinking.
yeah.
Yeah, 'cause that's different. If you're still, you were supposed to be talking. Sorry, thanks, Joe. If we're still gonna look for sponsors for all these other pieces and then still have a separate name, then let's talk about what that price would be. But we ought to get it all in there when you have the board approve it, put it all in the same brochure, so we'll come up with something for our next meeting.
Yeah, although I don't know, I mean, I think it would be, you know, naming the stadium, it would be contact, you know,
Maybe you just
this
put that,
person
maybe
to
just,
talk.
Dr. Radigan, yeah.
maybe you leave it that, maybe you leave it that way, just, you know, for
Right.
the name of the stadium, price to be negotiated, and then we'll just have a contact somebody, then they can
Right.
contact somebody.
Right, I mean,
Don't
but,
put a dollar amount.
OBO.
Right, because it could all be negotiated, because, I mean, usually it's a contract, and it would probably have to have a number of years. So I guess we could have a framework for it, but that could be negotiated. Right, and they might say, you know, for more money, and they say, well, we don't want anybody else's name in there, but, or we don't mind if other people's names are in there, then that would all be part of the
We
negotiation.
can talk.
Has anybody, Hatfield Quality Meats, has any, for hot dogs, did we get our hot dogs from Hatfield?
I don't even know.
I have a grandson that works there, he's a foreman at a plant. I
Do
don't
they
know.
sell turkey dogs? I think the hot dogs they're buying are turkey dogs.
I don't know, that's a smiling porker, I don't talk
They
about
get them or
turkey dogs.
buy them inexpensively.
Yeah,
They get a
food service provide them, I think, yeah, probably.
They're food service products.
Joe has something.
Yeah, you're not gonna like what I have to say.
Oh, then Joe-
I think tying these sponsorship levels to the costs that we're incurring is not the right way to go.
These are not the costs.
Or even any kind of connection between those two. I think we have to be more in tune with what is it worth to the sponsor. Because I think we're gonna have to make a business case for someone to invest this kind of money. So I'm afraid if we price it too high, we're not gonna get any. I'd rather set a number of what we're trying to raise, and we had talked last time at 1.7 million. And how can we get to 1.7 million in different categories?
With these
Because,
options.
for example, I think a team room at 250 is probably gonna be, I don't know who or what would do that in this market. If you were in Philadelphia, if you were in New York, if you were in Pittsburgh, maybe, but we have to remember where we are. And I think that those kind of levels are gonna be prohibitive. In my thinking, that 250 would have been to name the stadium. Over 10 years, 25,000 to be called, Hellman Track and Field at so-and-so stadium. There's a business value to that. I don't know that there's a $250,000 business value to naming a weight room or a team room, because that's not gonna be out in the public.
Well, Coach Hollenbein said that some of the NFL players that came from Pennridge might be willing to put their name on that. If somebody
might.
that really cares about this,
For 250, for $250,000?
I don't know.
I think that's in the stratosphere. I just think that, if we could do it, that's great, but
Are you saying that, Joe, based on what you've seen with
Well,
other schools? I mean, you're saying,
based on what we
like
saw with
that,
Perky
maybe
and the
no.
Valley at 12.5, and they're not too dissimilar from us in terms of size.
Okay.
And I did talk to, one of my assignments was to talk to Pennsbury, and they had a very aggressive fundraising effort 2 years ago through a company called School Media, which is the one that I told you about that wanted a big percentage.
Oh, right, they're the ones that do the ads in the school.
And Pennsbury was extremely disappointed in what they were able to do.
Oh,
That there was just not a market for it at what they were trying to raise. They were trying to raise $400,000.
yeah,
And they
each
came
year, right?
nowhere, they
They
came
didn't
nowhere
come
close to it. And in fact, they're not doing it anymore. And then she told me about this outfit that's working with Perkiomen Valley and Boyertown. They seem to have a lower threshold for what they're trying to do, but maybe they're being successful because they have sold a $12,500 sponsorship. They actually sold two. They also named, I forget what the other one was, but it was 12.5. They sold 2 3-year sponsorships for 12.5 each.
I wonder if we should look at, I mean, if we don't think we're gonna get that much money in just the stadium, I mean, would we consider naming the natatorium or the gym in the high school?
Well, that's exactly what this is working on. I'll just give you the ideas. The auditorium, they'll name for $12,000 for a year. So for that year, it's known as the so-and-so auditorium. The gym, their main gym, $10,000 a year. Cafeteria, $7,500 a year. The pool, $6,500 a year. The guidance suite for $6,000 a year.
Oh, I'm not.
High school library
I
for
mean,
$6,000
that just
a
feels
year.
like you're just.
And the high school nurses suite for
Yeah,
$5,000. Now, they haven't sold those, but they're out there. That's what
My original thought when we were talking this for the summit last year was that I think it would be a whole lot easier to sell more $300 blocks for somebody that wants to remember a parent or a child or whatever, that it's a lot easier to get the depth of the support from the community. I don't know how deep that pool of support would be, but I think we might be surprised if we ask. That was my original thought, that it's, to find somebody to write a check for $250K, I'm inclined to agree with you that that's going to be difficult. But to me, when you have somebody that wants to remember a parent, a child, a teacher, fill in the blanks, anybody that we want to remember in this community. That's why I like the idea of calling it Pennridge Memorial Stadium. That we just make this kind of, shrine's a little strong, but that we remember the people from Pennridge, Dr. Ruth, Dr. Kish, I mean, fill in the blank. Any coach that you want to remember, anybody that's important to the school. And we were talking about different sports, girls hockey, or lacrosse or whatever, that we could open this up to the community. The service clubs, if we get their support, I think they can come up with a chunk of money. They're not going to raise $250,000, but again, how can we get this out to the grassroots and the community?
Well, I think there should be an opportunity for people to make those kinds of.
I hope so, because
That's not,
terrific.
again, we're not gonna be successful with the whole thing with that either. I think we need a blend, we need 5 or
No
6 or
question.
7 different things.
That's what I was gonna say, I
that are
think,
gonna
you
come
have
together.
to use that avenue as well,
Absolutely.
but have these options available, but not
No
lay
question.
everything on,
No question.
put all your eggs in this basket here,
Exactly.
expecting that it come from sponsorships.
Right.
I mean, we've heard that there are people that want information on sponsorships, so,
Sure.
obviously we have to,
No, I think we need to
Come up with
look at
that.
all possible avenues.
yeah, but realize that that doesn't allow everybody to be a part of this, and that's what we wanna do.
Right. Down to the papers and the seats and
Exactly.
the seat, whatever.
All right, well, how about we go through the memorial proposal, and the advertising, go through the other things, and then we'll come back
Yeah,
to it and when we get to discussing next steps.
Yeah,
And
maybe-
then we can,
maybe this price is unrealistic, but we tried to look at something that was, had some sort of relationship with value to the building, and I would rather get a number like Joe says, it's gonna be real. Even if it's 1/3 or 1/4 of that, someone will do. Okay, next is memorial opportunities. In a lot of, you'll see at libraries, you'll see at hospitals, you'll see at colleges, they have like different levels of memorials, platinum level, gold level, silver level, and green level, obviously, because that's Pennridge. So we suggested, 10, 5, 1, and 500. And then at the bottom, we talk about, the other one is really the pavers. From what Jeff explained, that when you go up the sidewalk that's, I guess leads to, closer to where you came in the building here, for
Right.
access, you're gonna have another sidewalk on the other side of the lights. So there will be 30 inches to 3 feet in between. It's a perfect place to start pavers from the top and work your way down. So these are the memorials, and I just put $100 to $150 per paver, but I don't know, it depends on the size. They ought to be uniform, and Jeff started telling earlier that we can get them with a P in them, and then they can, up to X number of characters, but that's something everybody can do, like you're saying. So I was looking at doing, recommending we do 3 different proms. We do that, we also have an advertising thing, so that you try to get enough, go out there and try to find something that everybody can join into. So let's remember a teacher, a coach, a band director, whatever we're doing, going through this,
All sports.
a principal,
everybody.
correct.
Okay,
An
so-
athlete that played up there.
yeah, so would you still call these, like if you have the platinum, gold, silver, and green, would they be a memorial? Wouldn't that be more of just a sponsorship? You're making a donation and you get your name on the wall?
Unspecified, you'll have a list of your platinum, there'll be a plaque for platinum donors.
Yes.
Well, that's what,
Yes,
I was at Council Rock,
Yes. yeah,
and that's what
like
they
that.
have outside their
Exactly.
stadium. It's in a case, it's right
That's
down
what it
at
is,
the
something like
entrance
that.
to the
Correct.
stadium, and it has 5 levels, same
Correct.
thing,
That's
platinum,
how
gold,
hospitals do
silver, bronze.
Hospitals, universities do it that way, and libraries as well, so.
I don't think you would just want to call it memorial, I don't think that's the right word for it, because somebody might donate as a memorial, but some people will just donate because they want to donate, and they're not, they're really being more of a sponsor or contributor.
Are those annual
one of the options.
No, you know what, it didn't specify on there, but do you see the title, it says Light the Rock? I'm assuming that that may have been a fundraising effort for lights. There was nobody there that I, you know.
And it also, if you look at the very top, it says the Football Booster Club would like to thank.
Yeah, so
And it has-
obviously it
yeah.
went, you know, it was some fundraising effort. I'm, again, I'm,
Maybe just a one-time.
assuming that it was that,
project.
yeah. I know that several years ago when I was there, they had a fundraiser sign up showing the progress for turfing their field, because it originally was grass. I don't know that, I'll age myself, when I was in high school and went to Council Rock for games, if they had lights then. Did they?
That's right.
So that's probably, oh, okay. Then that's probably a fundraising effort, since it says Light the Rock, for lights on the field.
And you can talk about, you know, the dollar amount, I was just coming up with something.
Yeah, or
like
the
a
dollar
significant-
amounts, I know like hospitals do this type of thing,
Correct.
you know.
That's what the
in
numbers
line with
give.
those.
And maybe we shouldn't be as high as.
Again,
hospital.
should our dollar amounts be a little bit lower, just
Yeah.
to make it accessible to everybody?
I wanted to graduate, so if you,
Mhm.
if the top level is 5,000, then you can tear it down. But it's the idea that I
Yeah.
wanted to bring out for the board to at least look at that. This is something anybody can do, that and their name will be on the plaque, honor of, memory of, or you can put down donated by.
Right, yeah, I don't want, if you call it a memorial, it makes it, I think it limits it to only people who want to memorialize someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe just sponsor, like you said, and then if they want to put it in memory of somebody, then they can.
Right, but that would be an option.
Right.
But if you want to, if we do have sponsorship, which is the bigger ticket, then you don't want to say, yeah, just have,
Donation, call it donation. And if they want to have it in honor or memory of somebody, it's fine, it's not, it's just a donation.
right.
So we can call something, let's change
Yeah, we
that.
gotta just change the, yeah, that's detail, yeah.
Donate, we'll call it donation opportunities, and then the plaque, they have just X characters, you know, we'll give a sample. Donation by, in honor of, in memory of.
And so you're saying,
Whatever.
because the pavers would be around $150, that we would start the other donations at something higher?
Yes.
At 500, because if you wanna just donate 100, then you get a paver.
Yeah, if it's 250, then if you cut these in half, then the grade level is 250, and someone may say, well, I would rather do 3 pavers for my family. That's fine too. But I just want to give people options from low up to something that, you know, if they really want to go together. Because it could be, even on the sponsorship, you know, for some of the buildings, if we're going to, you know, whatever the price ends up being, it could be a group of people that go together and sponsor. It doesn't have to be one person.
Well, this could too, like you said, you know,
Correct.
class of whatever year.
Correct.
It could be done in this, it doesn't have to be
That's
on the
correct.
bleacher, it could be in this one.
Most classes have money left over, they're bleacher seats, they could do, we talked about that. I mean, when classes get together from the past, just say, well, let's do something, you know, they'd like to have something where they can remember what they did. So having a bleacher or having their name on a plaque, you know, I think is something that they would want. You know, that's, they could go up and, when they go to a game, I would want them to come to the games. It's not just about giving money, come back, you know, it's yours, you know, this is part of Pennridge. So we can work on the price if you want to come back to them at some point.
Okay.
And the last thing I have is advertising, and just going through, there weren't a whole lot, but and then we can give reports.
Right, on what other,
And then
what
I
other
have
schools
some-
have raised, yeah.
It's easier to mark stuff up when you have at least something here, so that's, this is more for discussion, at least it's organized some way, you can at least change it, change prices, or whatever. The only two we had that we looked at from, this is the upper double, and it looked like it would work here, just for up on the field, is 2x5 polymetal sign, and you'll have to come up with a price. You have the brochure I gave from upper double, and then the other one they had that looked like it could work up on the field is a 4x6 heavy mesh banner. We think that the Green Jackets and some of the local places do something like that, you know, and then you get 3 years your max. So there's a yearly price if you want it for 1, if you want 3 years, then you get some discount. And that's what Upper Dublin does as well. So that's just a recommendation. There may be other things that you're going to look at. It might not be a bad idea if you're going to look at somebody sponsoring part of the concession stand, sponsored by, you know, Domino's Pizza, they do something on a yearly basis, and whether they get a discount for the kids to sell, but my name's up there, I want to do what I could to have the pizza sold as well.
Sure.
And I still want the kids to make their money for the junior class, but that can be worked out. But this gives them an opportunity, and we still haven't talked about, when you get a scoreboard, because you will get a better scoreboard up there. The newer ones have the line that flashes across the bottom, so what's that worth? How many times, per quarter, to have your name of your company or business?
And advertising.
Happy birthday, Billy Madison, somebody wants to do that, we're gonna show that every quarter, what's that worth? That's worth $20, $25.
The hug cam, the kiss cam.
Yeah, this is, I'm just saying, it's not just, the Phillies and the Eagles, it's, the colleges do, if we're looking to be serious about this, let's not just say no to something like that, we'll have to work that out, but you make sure when you get a scoreboard, that you have that capability to have that there, because that's an opportunity to collect some funds. I found out, again, that I don't have, any numbers from North Penn because Kathy's contact is gone and she was busy with other things for some reason this past week and a half. But Upper Dublin, the first year, their campaign, when they launched it, they made $17,400 in their advertising, and last year, $3,030. And the person who was with them is no longer there because I don't know whether they can afford that person or they may not have panned out, so that's a big drop.
Been only for 2 years so far.
That's correct. I just got the number through the end of the 12-13 number and then the 13-14. So this year is 14-15, so we'll see where they go from there.
And they did it just with the signs in different places.
All the advertising things that they had in the brochure. So
Yeah.
this is the total of everything. That's all they made. And it went down.
It's hard to believe.
So this is what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Mostly that
Down
area
Council
too.
Rock,
Yep.
that's their scoreboard. So you have a local business that has their, more than likely permanent under the scoreboard, whether they pay for the scoreboard. It's First National Bank of Newtown, which has been there for many, many years. For similar to First Savings, yeah, and then there's your sponsor, which would be your yearly advertising.
Yeah.
I don't think you're
That's
gonna
how
get a
the,
problem
much
getting a
like the
scoreboard.
Pennridge.
It's just all the other ones that I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe your name on the press box too, I could see
Correct.
that. I can see First
Yeah.
Savings
Yeah.
up there,
Yeah.
I can see a scoreboard.
I see
The
3 or 4 of
250
these
small
smaller
concession
pieces.
stand, that's a little reaching,
Although the concession stand, people are gonna see the concession stand name more than they would the team room.
well,
Yeah,
any of
because
those
of your
are
traffic
for
flow, that's true.
Right.
For what it's worth, Parkland charges for a 32 by 96 paved frame ground banner at their football games. There's only 12 of them available for 5 home football games, and they claim 5,000 people in a game.
What?
Plus, it's televised on RCN and Service Electric, $2,000 per sign, and they have 12 signs.
For a banner similar to like what is in the picture there,
It's
or is it bigger?
something like that,
Okay.
Oh, that's bigger.
What's the
Bigger.
size?
32 by 96, so.
Okay.
And which school district did you say?
Parkland.
Parkland.
And I have an appointment to talk to my counterpart there next week.
I'm trying to get in touch with some of the green jackets to see what they're currently have their banners for. I don't know, I know Celeste has been there had been there for many years
Yeah.
like I did. Do you remember, was it around 500?
At the top, yeah,
Does that sound
500,
right?
250, and 100.
Okay,
But
but
it
the
was
banner was
500.
500.
500 was the minimum. Yeah.
Comcast does something as
So
well. I think that's,
you're gonna, you
That's
haven't,
David.
so Joe, you haven't found out yet what Parkland makes? per year?
Not, that's what I can talk to her about next week.
Okay.
the brochure from Upper Dublin looked good, but that's a real drop off, 17 down to 3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, so do you have the details about how much Pensbury actually made?
All she told me was that their goal was $400,000 and they fell woefully short.
And that was the in-school
Right.
advertising?
They were the ones that were.
So it wasn't this type of advertising?
It was overall, it was their whole,
Okay.
and they're reinstituting their board's revenue enhancement committee, similar to what we're doing here.
Oh, okay. Now, did they say, was there advertising through all the schools, like at every level?
They were in the schools, they were on the buses.
Okay,
That was the plan. They
okay.
didn't necessarily
And
pay.
and how many years did they work on?
Just one.
Oh, just 1 year?
And this outfit they were working with was from Minnesota, and they tried to sell the ads from Minnesota. When that didn't work, they hired someone locally to do it, and that didn't work. So after a year, they were done.
Wow, okay. And then what were the other ones? Oh, we talked about, North Penn, you said we didn't.
And Kathy
and then
is gonna get that information.
Upper Dublin, yeah. And Pennsbury, yeah, okay. Wow. That's not encouraging. No.
To me, if you're looking at something other than the business value of this, because a lot of this, when people make a donation to a school, frequently it's your heart, not your head, that's making the donation. And to try to put a price tag hard and fast on what the value of that poster or that plaque is, and justify it on the basis of what kind of revenue or profitability you're gonna have for a year, I think is pretty hard. But I think a lot of schools, it's the heart rather than the head that's making the donation.
I think there's two. I think for the lower dollars, the heart.
That's what I mean, that's why I think that's.
We're gonna have, Dave gave me the list, 84 events on that field this year. That's scheduled now, that doesn't include band or community events, right? So, I
Does
mean,
that
that's
include the
84.
soccer team that's out there?
Yes, that's,
That's tourist.
That's everything that's scheduled.
no, that's just our school.
Just ours, okay.
Right. So that's gonna be the challenge, I think, is convincing a business that there is a value to those eyeballs that are gonna be at that stadium for how many times. This brochure that was put together on behalf of Perkiomen Valley, I think does a nice job because they do include the community demographics. How many people live there, how many students in the district, median house price. There's a lot of demographics here that for an advertiser, for a marketing person to look at and say, that's who we're trying to reach. And we would have to come up with something.
And does Perkiomen Valley have an amount that they raise each year?
No, this is literally just starting.
Oh, it's just starting,
This is
okay.
just starting. This company has two school districts right now, Perkiomen Valley and Boyertown.
And so they actually hire a company to do
Yes.
their fundraising?
Did they
Okay.
say what percent they?
Secondhand, I heard it's 75% the district gets.
Oh, okay.
The district gets 75% of the raise. I didn't get that from them. One thing we talked about was a name for this campaign. Does anybody come up with any cool names?
Susan had an idea.
I did, only because when I saw that with the council rock where it said light the rock, I came up with raise the gates. And I know that it was, according to the picture, or some swing open, but,
You do.
but that was one option. I was looking online at some things, different ideas, and not necessarily going along with that, but it said like an annual campaign, and it said about labeling it, and it, like Friends of Pennridge, something like that.
Just as a working title, I've been using the campaign for athletic excellence. That encompasses all the sports.
A lot of syllables.
But we
Rams
keep-
on the ridge.
Yeah, I was thinking
We do-
something on the ridge.
On the ridge.
Yeah, something, yeah, because it makes you think of Pennridge and it's on the ridge.
Rams on the ridge. Rams on the ridge.
I don't want it just to be construed as, just the sports, because we have our
Right.
band, and we have other activities that are up there that are student activities as well, that may not be directly connected to athletics, and I don't want to have anybody have their nose out of the joint, because the thing is, we need to raise money for the whole thing, so whatever works. Rams on the Ridge is everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Our band is the
Rams.
Rams, that's correct.
They're all
Powder
Rams.
Puff Girls out there play,
They're all
they're
Rams.
Rams, so I'm just looking at.
It's part of, Pennridge Proud, Bleeding Green,
Correct.
Pennridge,
That's
Rams.
correct.
They're all tied in.
I had said that Notre Dame has has the alumni band that they bring. They really keep the ties to the school alive. And a lot of us have been going back for more than 50 years. And we play at halftime, we march, it's just like you're in the band. We don't have uniforms, we just have a blazer and like a windbreaker and a hat, but it's a lot of fun. And it keeps you tied to the school. They hit us every year for a donation and the whole bit. So,
That's at your high school?
no, it's Notre Dame.
Oh, okay, oh, yeah, because I go back to Harvard every 5 years.
But on a smaller level, I believe the same thing is possible here. And I think we miss the point if we don't try that. That's,
Well, again, I mean, it's a very large group to tap into, which is your alumni, which
Exactly.
never
Right.
has been done.
exactly
You know,
huge.
Right.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
you know.
Well, and I think if we want to reach out to alumni, then I think you bring in a lot of class captains or different, alumni, and you have those
Absolutely.
people reach out, you get a lot more people working. That's what all the
Absolutely.
universities do.
Yeah, I mean, I think our
That's
biggest,
That's number 5, who are we gonna reach out to?
yeah, our biggest challenge is gonna be how to reach out to those. How do we get in touch with, since it hasn't been done in the past,
Right, to create the,
how do you get in touch with these alumni classes and these people?
Is there no alumni organization as part of the school here? There's no record keeping on,
You started, didn't you, Joe?
The only thing that we have is the alumni directory that's produced by Harris Connect. And they should be in the process of doing that now.
This should be our year for that to happen. I'm saying-
Once they do that, they contact all the people that they have in their database, then they send out postcards, giving them an opportunity to go online and update their information, email address, put mailing address, and those kind of things.
do we know who class officers were in each of those years?
I don't know if that's part of,
Because
it's
I
not
think-
part of the directory, I know that.
It is
When-
not,
when
I
they
wonder
print
if the
the
school
record.
would have that kind of record.
I don't know why
If
they
they
would.
have yearbooks, they would have, you could probably
Yeah,
find that.
Because, I mean, for reunions, it frequently ends up being the class officers or some kind of a ad hoc committee that gets pulled together, which the class officers usually have some part in order to organize that kind of thing. And if you have that active, that you are working the alumni, I think that's really important to try to keep that tie open and alive.
Part of our agreement with Harris Connect is that we have access to their database when they're doing this, when they're done.
We need somebody here to do it. We need some.
who pays for them?
The individuals who buy the books,
Oh, because then they sell the book, oh, okay.
there's no cost to the district. We get a certain number, we get 100 books or something.
What we could provide for them, the class officers, just going backwards, so it's part of that, class of 1972 is gonna have, we have that information through yearbooks and stuff.
We could send mailings to for those kind of folks, I know you're gonna spend some money, or emails even.
Well, and I think that's where you start to use the social media too. That's where
Exactly.
Facebook will play a big role. Once you get your ball rolling there.
And that's really, you're getting more grassroots at that point, you're not really looking for a white knight to come in and write you a check for $250,000, that's what we
Well, we
want.
want both.
Yeah, I mean, if they're out there, sure, we want to find them.
We want the white knights and we want the foot soldiers. We want everybody.
All right, so we've gone through, so, I mean, just discussion of prospective contributors, so we've talked about alumni. Obviously, local businesses. Jeff made a list of some people who've already advertised it, was it Percy?
At the Little League field.
Right,
I have a list of some other ones that.
And I have more influence time, I have a lot more names that I can give you.
so all
I can-
businesses,
I
local
can help with
businesses.
Yeah, contractors and.
Service
Even
calls.
Landis Block, when I was talking to Landis Block about doing the paver, they said, if you want us to donate, here's the guy to talk to, so I have that name from Landis Block too, whether they want to do a sign, donate the pavers, I'm not sure what they had in mind, but I have a name for them.
Right. I remember a couple of years ago when a lot of people were coming to the meetings and they wanted the stadium, it was a lot of football parents who wanted to move the stadium up to here. And they were saying, some people are, contractors and they're saying they could donate
Right, they're time,
materials or
all kind, right.
time. I mean, is that something that we want to look into as well? I mean, I don't even know how that would work with
We
the
really,
bid that.
yeah, to get contractors up there working, that would
Limited
be,
with that.
that would be a problem. donate material, probably wouldn't work either.
Okay, so it would only be donations for, like,
Money
the-
donations.
monetary.
yeah.
I mean, if we're all said and done and we didn't build ticket booth number 3 and a couple years went by, we could do it that way. But we certainly couldn't get other contractors working up with these contractors at the
Right,
same
yeah.
time. So
Yeah,
there's a way to do it, but it would be after the fact, I think.
okay.
Well, and some of the, some of the bigger ones in the area, obviously Grandview Hospital, I mean, that's a big one,
That's correct. They're on
And,
there. Purposely bang.
they're affiliated with Upper Bucks Orthopedics, which, I know we probably have enough kids going there.
You would think Grandview Hospital would love to have their name on the scoreboard.
Yeah,
Or the
Yeah.
rest
Yeah,
box.
you know,
Or the
and First
First Box.
Savings, Univest
First
is local,
Savings, Univest.
National Pen, is another one.
Okay.
Giant, I mean, I'm not sure, although they're a big corporation, they are.
Quick Down National Bank wouldn't work too well with it.
No,
Hey, if they want
Known as
to,
QNB.
Giant Gates.
Good day.
It's no longer Greater Town National Bank.
Big Giant?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They've got
okay.
like 3 or 4 branches in the district.
There too.
That's
The
it.
scoreboard.
Yeah, yeah, at least
yeah, CVS,
So yes.
there's another big one right there.
That's why I think you get the big money the first year, and after that, it's just gonna be a constant, but
Yeah.
17,000, I think you can do that easily. If we sell 100 signs that go around for $250 a sign, that's 25,000 right there.
That's annual income.
Yeah,
That's annual.
that's annual, right?
How many signs do we think?
Well, I'm just saying 100, it's just,
That's
that's
right.
what I'm saying, I didn't go up to measure, but 100 signs, $250 a piece. Pennridge Little Leagues, they can't even put them anymore.
Yeah.
They've gotten them
They're
packed,
everywhere.
it's packed, there's not a space for a sign. And we have a lot more room up there, and a lot more visitation, a lot more people that are viewing it.
And after the first year, like I said, what I saw in there, you do an annual campaign. Another thing it said was, a special event, like a 5K, something like that,
You can, if you're doing a capital campaign, if someone wants to contribute at a lower amount other than what you've listed, you just take it. I mean, the reason why they have the levels is if I'm gonna give 50, but if I give 150, then I've reached the green level, and I have my name or my family name there. That's the reason why they set those different levels, to help people to stretch, what's the next level? Or maybe I go in with my brother, and we're able to give $500, and we get to another level. But that way you have something for them. It all goes into your capital campaign. All those things on the sponsorship, well, not the sponsorship, but the donations, and then also in the advertising, are part of your capital campaign process here as money is coming in. So we're just trying to find different ways to get people to, have opportunities if they want. I think we need to right size our sponsorship opportunities.
Well, then what we need for September, I guess what our goal is then is to work, these 3, right?
Right size these, make sure that we right size the donation opportunities as well, so that everybody's comfortable, and then have the board, approve that these are what we're well for, and hopefully we'll get some of it started.
Well, we talked about, before we get on to next steps, prospective contributors, we had also talked about people that could, work with us. So I mean, prospective contributors, you have, all local businesses and alumni.
And service clubs
And then
too.
organizations.
Right, and so, right, and do we want to get anything, or parents, that are here now? How do we get them involved? Or, just trying to get more people, I mean, and if we did an alumni, then you want to get a lot of alumni involved, right? So that they can send emails or write a letter, so it's personal, is there a way to bring parents in as well? Or or the service organizations, which, they're always doing their own fundraising for their own projects. But I do know, was it the Rotary Club
Right,
works with
always
the,
supposed to be your time.
Right.
okay, right, they
Very interested they are, but what can they do for us up here? And they can't really build anything, but maybe they can do what you're talking about, reach out.
or they have a fundraiser, because I know in the past they've had a fundraiser and then they donate part of the proceeds to the Education Foundation.
Right.
So if they have a fundraiser, and so maybe people who are doing fundraisers, if they wanna say, okay, we're gonna give a portion of this to the stadium, and then or maybe they just say, oh, we're gonna, you know, we could get the, if the booster clubs wanna do, they can be in on the, you know, whatever, the same thing, get a paver or a plaque or something like that.
One of the coaches, when we were up walking around the stadium at one point, asked us about a defib up there that's on the field, that the people that are using the field, they don't want to be looking around for a defib if they need it up there. And that would be an opportunity for somebody to, it should be available, maybe a couple of them, one at each end of the field or something, I don't know, but
Weren't they donated a couple years ago, was it?
There's one in every school,
Yeah.
yes.
but not on
Were
the
they-
field.
Not up there.
Were they
That's a long
donated?
way to go. If you've got somebody that's in distress, that's a long way to go.
Purge through the
I
IU.
think Linda, our school nurse, is getting more, I've already talked to Brian about putting one in the press box right now. This year is the only place we can put.
That's permanent, yeah,
Lock-
that's gonna be
lock on
permanent,
It's gotta be
secure.
multiple.
Yeah.
Could we have some kind of cabinet that's, on the benches that you could lock? I don't know, I'm only.
Well, I would imagine your trainers
Yeah,
out there,
it's
so
hard.
they would have one
on the cart, so-
at all times.
And there's somebody there for all the sports, not just football? 'Cause
Yeah, he's on campus for, he may not be right at every single event, but he's here, there might be 4 or 5 events going on at the same time.
how hard is he to find? How long is
He's
it
got
gonna take him to get there?
Cell phone, and he gets there on a cart, right away.
Okay, as long as that's appropriate or whatever.
But we do want to put one in the press box just because of the volume of people that are always there.
Okay.
So that's what we're working on.
How about the soccer club that rents the field?
The torch,
Yeah.
yeah.
Weren't they, hadn't they talked about donating money?
At one
Buildings
point,
or,
pardon me?
wasn't it a building or something?
Well, they
A
wanted
ticket
to, a year or two ago, they wanted a ticket booth so they could collect their own money and tickets, so they wanted to build a shed up there.
Yeah.
And after we said, well, we're gonna be doing this possibly someday, we don't wanna have to build a shed and then we take it down. So they said they might run a fundraiser and be able to give us like $10,000 through the fundraising.
Okay.
Now, part of that, those that they would practice for free all year, I don't know how much they pay you to practice. I'm sure it's not equal to $10,000.
Yeah, they do spend a lot, I don't
Okay.
think. yeah.
But they are willing somehow, we just need to talk to them when time's right.
Yeah, and how much money do we make on field rentals? That's
They
something.
pay $100 an hour, roughly, and they play for, I'd say about a month and a half, and they're up there 4 or 5 times a week for 3 to 5 hours. I mean, they're up there a lot. They do give us a decent check.
But how about overall, that'd be something maybe we could bring to the next meeting, how much money are we making on field rentals overall from all?
Are they one of the
They're
biggest?
the biggest.
They're the
Yeah.
biggest.
Other than them,
Just
Deep
Deep
Run
Run.
and Deep Run.
And they pay a lesser,
Yeah,
Well, I know
they're
that-
at the exact same tier because they're both
oh,
from
community
their own
groups.
community. yeah.
Right, okay. Okay, yeah, so if we could bring that to the next meeting and see what we're making.
Total amount in rental?
Yeah. Yeah, each year about.
You have that
what we're
big,
making.
or I guess Kathy?
Yeah,
had it,
I
right?
have last year's, I know, every year we kind of look at that.
Okay.
Is there any thought, Dave, for how what we're doing to this field might make their life any easier? Is there any value to them in our doing this
Oh, yeah.
that would help them somehow, and that we could maybe get a little more money from them if now that, because.
They're pretty much almost a nonprofit, that, they're not really a major organization, so they're not making a lot of money.
All right, we were just talking about, before we talk about next steps, taking public comment. So see if anybody has, before we talk about what we're gonna do next, if you have if anybody wants to share any thoughts about the items that we discussed. Okay.
I'm Celeste Ferrer. I can't get you from here. That's okay. 2 things. I know you were talking about concession stands. If you're having somebody to sponsor it or we would be selling their things and concerning the junior clubs and all that. Well, I'm thinking from the booster clubs now. You know, football, band, and cheer have concessions, not concession stands, but they have little
They do their own
spirit
little
tables
thing, yeah.
there at the games. That might interfere with us, and that's a good fundraiser for us, for cheer especially.